always been essentially to assist us for the most part, because we are responsible for search and rescue in Alameda County. So for the most part, it's a search and rescue device.
But in the language in there, it says something about surveillance. There's actual language in there that does talk about expanding the guidelines for this drone technology. So there is concern because while you cite an example of a search and rescue or a specified search, the language in here kind of leaves it open.
Well, this is not brand new technology, but it's technology that a lot of agencies are looking at. We're one of those many agencies that are looking at it. And so there are no hard and fast rules. In fact, currently the FAA hasn't even issued their final rules on using these. So we wouldn't even be considering deploying this until those rules are promulgated and we know what they are.
So if they said, look, we're okay with this as long as they get a search warrant every time they put it out, would you find that acceptable?
If they, meaning the FAA or the
No.
courts or whoever.
Well, I'm saying if the people that are opposed to this, they're going to bring it up in the committee meeting, that are going to try and put the kibosh on it, if they said, we're okay if we get warrants, would that be too restrictive?
Well, first of all, that may be their opinion, that they would be okay if we got warrants, but it would really be up to the courts to decide whether we needed warrants or not. I think given what we're proposing to use it for, that would make it almost impossible to use for the kinds of things, for the search and rescue types of events that we need to have, because first of all, you'd have to come up with a legitimate reason for the quote search warrant, and it's legitimate to be searching for a lost child or a lost adult or a person with dementia or Alzheimer's, but getting to the point where we would have to slow down the search or not be able to use the device. Yeah, we search for them now without them, so we could certainly search without it. But it would be most helpful if we had it, and if we could deploy it, the quicker the better. Because what we know is that individuals who disappear, particularly those with Alzheimer's, dementia, and young children, the longer you wait, the less your chances of success in finding them.
The people who are opposed to this want guarantees that this won't be used to violate an innocent person's privacy. What sort of guarantees can you give them?
It's a matter of trust, and I know that there are some individuals who don't trust the government, who don't trust law enforcement, and I don't know how we can ever convince them that we wouldn't do that. But the sheriff's been saying since day one, this is a device that will be helpful for us to save other people's lives, that will keep people safe. We're not interested in this. There are lots of different ways that we can gather evidence that has nothing to do with the unmanned aerial system, and we'll continue to use those in order to protect the public for whatever the case may be.
State Senator Padilla has entered legislation that would offer some guidelines. So what's the Sheriff's Department's sort of view on, not just saying that this is a suggestion that you do this, but offering real concrete guidelines on how this aircraft could be used, what it would be acceptable, what would not be acceptable?
How do I feel about his?
How do you feel about having restrictions put on?
We work with restrictions all the time. That's how we do our business. We work within the rules, and if rules are promulgated, we'll follow them, and to the best of our ability.
Thanks very much.
Jim, yeah, I sure appreciate it.
Can I get your name, please?
It's Rich Lucia, Lucia, undersheriff.
And January, is that when that meeting is held? Is there a date set, or is
there isn't a special? We don't have the date. It's really up to the board to set the meeting date.
Okay.
And when they set the date, we'll be prepared to present our I don't know if you've seen this device. It was very well explained by
the cute
lady
version?
Yeah, it's like the size of a laptop computer.
Which one?
Okay.
The one the $31,000 one.
Well, I got one from Lockheed, one from Ariane, and one from.
I think the one that we had out, we had one. We used it in Urban Shield to help with our exercises, and we offered it up as anyone can come out and see it.
Okay.
And I will tell you, that's the first time I saw it.
Do you know who made it?
I think it was Lockheed.
So, 49.
Oh no, it's not a $49,000. We only have $31,000, so I think the one we looked at was Lockheed one, but I don't know for sure exactly which one they're going to buy. But if the one I saw was 49,000, you know, whatever we're gonna get for 31, it's gotta be less than that, I suppose, in terms of what it does. But it's,
But you've already gotten a bid for $31,000. I mean, this
yeah,
is a deal.
right. I mean, that's the.
It's not
amount of
31,000
that-
towards,
No,
no.
no.
What else is this money, the rest of this, it's 1.5 million, or
1.2
1.2 million?
yeah.
What else will this money be used for?
Well, it's all, you know, it's all outlined in the board letter,
Okay.
except for item number 7. But it's, you know, it goes for, a little bit of it goes for our staff, our Office of Emergency Services. Most of it goes to, for example, for resiliency programs for the citizens, to work out ways when there's a disaster, how can we best utilize volunteers. There's a couple of groups that are involved in that help because it's a big problem. I mean, people just show up at a disaster. You know who they are. They need to have identification cards of some kind. You don't know if they're part of the problem or part of the solution, and you're already busy dealing with all these other issues. So that's one of the ways that the money is used. But,
Okay.
but there's we purchase communications for radio communications, which is very important, and we continue to struggle to get our interoperable communication system going. So we use a piece of it for that. We use some of it for explosive.
Is this an annual grant? that you
Annual
apply?
grant,
Okay.
yeah. It's
Is
called
this
the
usu-
State Homeland Security
Okay.
Grant.
And did you get 1.2 million last year, or is this more than last year?
No,
Do
it's
you know?
about the same.
About the same, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's what's called a formula grant, which means that we don't really
Oh,
apply
I
for it.
see,
It's
okay.
just, there's a number that the state
You have
comes
X
up
amount of
with
population,
and
X amount
says,
of-
boom,
okay.
so this is your grant. And, you know, how do you want to spend it? And then when we put out the word to the public safety in the volunteer communities that there's going to be a vetting of this process. If you think that there's a good use for it, please let us know, bring your proposals. Then this group of 5 people on the Anti-Terrorism Approval Authority, which represent various disciplines throughout the county, they get together, they look at all the projects, they decide which ones they're going to recommend, and then those are recommended to Cal EMA as we would like to spend the money on these 10 projects. And here they are, you know, 1 through 10.
So after this January meeting, then it goes back to the board, but you still have to wait for board approval.
What the sheriff has agreed to do, the grant itself, the 1.2 million, except for the purchase of the unmanned aerial system, will move forward, and we will go ahead and do what Cal EMA has approved.
Okay.
We will not purchase the unmanned aerial system.
Right.
That'll go to the Public Protection Committee where it'll be vetted, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay.
After that, so we're not locked in that what's going to go to public protection, and then the next week we're going to buy it. You know that.
No, understood. But before, even if when it goes through the public meeting, it still has to come back to them for
Then
final approval?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's not,
We've-
even if it's a formality, either way.
It really, that's the process that we've agreed to.
Okay, okay.
And
I just wanted to make sure I
the board is, in order for a purchase order to go out, there has to be an authority behind the purchase order. So
Okay,
that
and
would
that's
be
the
the
third,
board's
okay.
direction.
I know if the Public Protection Committee.
No, because there are only 2 members. So the committees, because of the Brown Act, the committees that the supervisors sit on are only staffed with 2 members of the board.
Oh, I see, okay.
So, because if there were 3, of
Right,
course,
right.
they could vote and make a decision. So they're purposely only staffed with 2 members of the board.
Okay.
And then they'll come back to the full board with a recommendation after the
Okay, okay.
committee meeting.
Thank you for your
Sure,
patience.
no problem.
Thank you much.
Sure.
All right, take care.
All righty.